really a challenge, though, is it?
I'm around speaking with challenge your brand. Yeah, got hard buying IBM apparently, but they did.
Welcome on, bienvenue, welcome one and all to another live stream. As usual, David Chernick over talking the lead up, and myself, Gareth Wax of the Many Purple Hats, here to discuss modern sales. Today, we're talking about something interesting: how to challenge much bigger competitors. You know, I'll tell you what. One of the first things in my first ever sales job, which was with a company called Minx, I was told Minx, yeah, no long deceased, but I was told it doesn't matter how big or how small they are. If you can find a way of building a bridge with the person you're talking to at the other end, you'll get there. It's all about getting to the point where they see you as a person that can help them, rather than, you know, a small fry. Just as a person.
I hear that. I have a personal plea, though, just because you've kind of, I wouldn't say triggered me, but you prompted me to.
Oh, I love a triggering. Let me trigger you. Trigger.
When people say it's all about, and then they name the one thing that they think it's all about, and it's never all about one thing, is it?
It's really all about.
It's all about.
It's all about.
I hear that on a daily basis. It's all about this. It's all about that. And
yeah, the only thing that matters is.
Yeah. But what we're talking about here really is the challenger brand, you know, and it's I mean, it's a function really of my own client base. A lot of my clients are challenger brands. You know, they are not the dominant brands in their markets. I dare say the dominant brands in markets don't necessarily have much call for a consultant like me.
Do you know what? I think they have a lot of call for a consultant like you, but
they don't call anyway. They don't tend to call. I have worked with some big clients, you know, the dominant brands, but the majority of my clients I think of as challenger brands, the ones that are not the main brand in their market, that are usually considerably smaller than the handful of dominant brands, and so they're trying to sort of make their mark in this space. So a lot of them are, you know, what I would think of as, you know, they're not SMEs, they're not sort of 10-man bands, but, you know, some of them are like 50 people businesses, 100 people businesses, or less. You know, I mean, I've got a lot of clients that are small micro businesses, but they seem to have that thing in common, that they are challenging and they aspire to be selling at the level of bigger players in their markets. So that's why I sort of brought this question to the table, because it's just something I've got a lot of experience in. So I see the sort of pitfalls and I see the ways that people are successful. And some of the pitfalls really include a lot of trying to behave like the brand that you are challenging.
Yeah.
They try and act big, they try and sound big, they try and ape the corporate gobbledygook that those big brands use in their conversations and quotes. They try and mimic the websites, you know, and the marketing to give the appearance that they are just as big. And they're not just as big, obviously. You know, when you phone up one of these big companies to speak to your account manager, you know, you're going to be speaking to somebody who is perhaps either at or below middle management level. But the same size client phoning up their supplier, who happens to be a challenger brand, is going to be speaking to a more senior manager, if not sometimes the owner or the chief executive. He's making notes.
I am.
Yeah. All coy and that. So, you know, that's what one of the pitfalls is doing that, is to try and ape the bigger company. And it very, very rarely works, because you don't have all of the minerals that those big companies have. Yeah, everything that you're trying to compete on.
Also, I've got another point is,
and another thing,
to be able to use, no, it's embroidering what you've already said. To be able to use the tactics that the big boys use, you have to have gotten enough credo. You have gotten enough, what's the word? Notoriety to be able to say some of the things they say and do some of the things they say and get away with it.
Yeah.
If you don't, it just looks like an ant kicking the back legs of a horse.
Yeah, and it feels like that to the buyer. I mean, you know, back in the day when we were kids, you know, it was just but when I was a kid anyway, entering the workplace, you know, the thing was that we had just emerging from going back to the early 90s, really. Nobody ever got fired for buying IBM. However, when I entered the workforce, people started getting fired for buying IBM because the challenger brands were starting to, you know, emerge and bring new stuff into the world of corporate IT. And so some of the same reasons exist now as to why challenger brands can often succeed, but you've got to do it in a very particular way. And these are just really some observations I've made from my clients over the years. Okay, so I'm not here saying that this is the way to do it, how to challenge much bigger competitors. I probably should have more accurately said, here's how my successful clients have challenged bigger competitors. That first point is to not compete with them in the same game. Yeah, you're going to have to find some other ways to compete with them. And here are some examples. So I've got a number of clients that segment their market slightly differently to the brands that they're challenging. And they do things, for example, like not go for the volume work, but focus their attention on the premium work. So, for example, if you use the example of big IT, and you've done telecoms before, right?
Yeah.
Or telecom systems, right? So if you take the example of IBM, which people still know, you know, IBM might provide all of the IT and infrastructure for the entire company, right? But if you were a challenger brand, you might say, well, I'm not going to provide the IT for the whole company, which is of such a level gross margin. I want to just go for the much higher margin stuff and maybe provide the IT for their most critical functions. I don't know, security or the sales software or something along those lines. You know, so that's one way that a lot of my clients seem to have done it, is that they segment their markets that are only going for the premium end. Now, that, of course, presupposes that as a challenger brand, you have some prowess in those areas. And that sort of encourages the strategy of trying to specialize, you know, trying to make sure that whatever it is your passion, whatever you're great at, you focus on that. You become more niche.
Right.
Okay. And the way, if you wanted to ever become like one of those massive companies, is that you would expand the number of niches. Yeah, you could do that inorganically if you want. You can go and buy the top players in all those different niches.
Yeah.
And then integrate into your own business. But it's to focus on the niche. And at the micro business level, is to focus on the niche even more so. Yeah. Find the one thing that you're really, really good at and charge a premium for doing it. And qualify yourselves out of the volume space and, you know, the markets where they're phoning you up saying, oh, can I have a quote for X, Y, and Z? And so, oh, well, you know, I'm not just like, I'm not playing the game of just providing the cheapest quote. Now, I have clients that come to me, it's starting at that position a lot. And it's very difficult to say no to business, obviously. I mean, I started 14 years ago. I found it difficult to say no to stuff. If somebody was going to pay money for something slightly related to sales, I'd take it. You know, we designed websites back in the day. I've done 12 websites. A painful experience. And I wasn't the best at it. But there is a niche that I am the best at. And so if you're in a bigger company, but still you're a minnow compared to your main competitors, then the key is to specialize in the more premium areas. Now that gives you some advantages. One advantage is that it's a more profitable business. Yeah, if you're selling at the premium level, there tends to be more elasticity in pricing. People pay a bit more for that kind of thing and won't sort of hammer you down on pennies here and pounds there. So you'd end up with a more profitable business, right? And of course, profit is everything, right? Regardless of your size. So that's one of the things that you can do. The other thing that I notice from my clients that they do is in their areas of specialty, in their niche, they make sure they invest heavily in becoming really, really good at it, the best at it.
Right.
Yeah. So whereas it would be hard for in the world of IT and security, whereas it would be, hard for the likes of IBM or Dell or, any of those big companies to have a niche, famous service provider in the world of security. If you're a pure play security company, then you probably are going to have some advantages over those big boys. And people like Dell and IBM have over the years, I think, well, Dell certainly has, but developed a more niche brand in those specific areas.
I agree with everything you're saying. The trouble is a lot of the smaller fry, and I've seen this happen recently quite a lot, they've been focused on the one thing.
Yeah.
And then they feel like they're losing market. They feel like they're not making it. So they start taking on extra little bit.
Stuff. Yeah. No, it's a discipline. It's a discipline, isn't it? And, I'm talking about my clients. It's not my money. So I'm not the one turning away business.
Right.
So this brings the multifaceted thing, and it brings some other behaviors or characteristics that I have observed, and that is that they become much more strategic, the successful ones, in how they sell that stuff, right? So they don't just rely on taking inbound inquiries based on their reputation in that niche space, but they actively go out and they look for the markets, they look for those people who value that stuff, right? So it's not good enough just to become an expert at your own offering, your own products. You've got to know your market really well. You've got to know the players in that market. If you're selling a service to, I don't know, as I have clients doing this quite a lot for some reason, into HR directors at big corporates. So you're a small competitor selling to much bigger corporates. Yeah. And take a segment of the corporate's HR. That those HR buyers, yes, they will have some volume purchases of systems and services, but there'll be some niche stuff. For example, the HR looking after their top 5% of the workforce, the senior executives. So that's the space that if I had a specialist business services that serviced the HR market and I was a relative minnow compared to my competitors, I wouldn't want to be selling services that apply to the whole workforce. I'd probably be wanting to sell services that apply to the senior executives. Oh, look, I haven't got a heart because I made some sort of gesture.
Some weird thing. Senior executive with heart. Okay,
that's an interesting thing.
We've had a couple of weird comments.
That'll be from your followers then.
Thank you.
That sustains human life.
Planet that sustains human life is dying.
Delete.
Yeah, that's
so look, so there's a couple of things there, and in order to become much more strategic, you need to be able to go out to that community of people that are in that market, those HR directors, and establish relationships with them. Yeah, this is going to be an outbound investment of your time in developing relationships, right? It's not going to be good enough to just sit there taking inquiries and quoting in the face of competition from bigger companies. You have to have established relationships, right? If I was running a business services company, servicing that HR director buyer, I'd want to be going out there and having conversations with those HR directors. I'd want to be going to the places where they are at. You know, I'd want to be mixing in CIPD circles. I'd want to be going to those conferences.
So you become well known within those circles for that certain specific knowledge set.
Right. Sharing my knowledge and my expertise. You know, one of the advantages that you have, which is often cited of being a smaller company, is that, you know, you're more agile and that kind of thing. So, you know, I want to be able to use that to my advantage, use my agility to get in front of these people and share my own specific know-how. Yeah.
Right.
You know, it'd be unusual for the chief executive of a massive HR services company to turn up at a networking event. You know, themselves, they'd send their salesperson or their marketing person to go and do those things. They'd have a stand that was manned by the marketing department. So you'd never get to speak to the chief executive or the owner of the business if you were a buyer, right? But if it is a smaller company, then you'd be speaking to senior people there, the ones with the know-how, the ones with the lived experience of having probably built this thing from scratch, based on a dream that they had, that the world could be a better place in that world of HR systems.
All right.
Am I overdoing the HR example?
A little bit, but I think the point is well met. What I'd like you to do is summarize our overall point. Let's take it home, David.
Okay, so if you're a smaller company, then you can't compete with the big boys on their own game.
Don't try and compete with them on their own turf. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah. So instead, focus on the stuff that you're really good at, where you really want to have a good reputation, where you probably already do have a good reputation if you've survived as a small business.
Sure.
And max out on that. Establish good relationships with the key buyers in that, not necessarily to always to be selling to them, just to be part of that community. And no doubt people are going to nick your know-how and give it to the big guys, say, yeah, do this as well, please, like them. But it doesn't matter. You want to be dealing directly with them at senior level. They're going to be enjoying all of that, but you're probably going to have good systems yourself in order to be able to cultivate those.
And you're going to have to have but you're going to have a bit of patience. You've got to allow your.
There's going to be patience. You're going to have to know how big purchases are made. This is going to probably involve you getting involved in procurement processes, but don't be scared by them. There are people that will help you. I will help you with it. Yeah, go through a procurement process.
But if you become known in that chain for consistency being everything, and knowledge. Well, it is. It's about always being consistent. So every time they counter you or ask you a question that you, within your field of scope of knowledge, that you understand it, that you give them the answer in a way that they can absolutely access it, that you don't, that you are open and honest with your dealings. And that's after a while, you will become the byword for that specific set of knowledge. And then when the opportunity arises, it's going to be a hard 50-50 with them to notice that you'd be the best fit for them, for you to notice that there's a possibility that you can work with them. And if you can keep that going, you will hit the Hitachi data systems. Yeah. You will hit the IBMs, the Gartner groups, whatever it is. You will be able to hit those because you got that notoriety and that knowledge base and this people set who are willing to stand up and be counted on your behalf. I know this because I lived that truth. I did exactly that.
There is a culture within a subculture within the buyer community called early adopters, and they're the ones who buy from challenger brands.
Yeah. So all that remains for me to say is thank you so much for David Chernick to give of his time. I'm Gareth Wax of Many Purple Hats. We are here every week, every Wednesday, talking about modern sales, usually facets of it, small changes, small ideas that can turn into big sales if you apply them consistently. Until next week, thank you for attending. I love the fact that people are taking notice of what we're doing. And remember, if you encounter me and every so often I do come across people who say, oh, that thing you talk with David, come up with ideas you want us to talk about. That really helps us. But until next time, keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars, and look after that mental health. Bye-bye now.